Hello everyone, you are watching a fragment of the Countdown program. See the full version of the program on the Patreon resource. And thanks to everyone who is becoming our patrons right now. About the misadventures of the bald and handsome, look at Daily Motion, and here on YouTube, about the most important thing. Putin's statement about the imminent deployment of tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus nullified fresh Russian-Chinese agreements and gave rise to several acute questions at once. Less than a week after the joint statement with the head of China that nuclear powers should not place these weapons outside their borders, Putin announced the imminent deployment of Russian nuclear weapons in Belarus. In the lads, this is called pissing on the face of a partner. Lowered C, bring another. But China doesn't have another Xi, and this one will definitely be offended, because it won't understand such a disdainful attitude towards carefully crafted agreements. After all, it turns out that the word of the Russians is not worth anything at all. In vain he only wandered to Moscow, wasting time and testing his reputation for strength, shaking the leggings of a toxic outcast. On the other hand, the Kremlin realized that one could not count on Beijing's military assistance, and began to be rude without looking back, but with reservations, in the hope that the Chinese would swallow it if sweetened. Russia will continue to fight for peace with a sword and shield, and China will continue to fight for peace with a wise word and commanding gesture. Propagandists around the Kremlin justify themselves. A kind word, backed up by tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, is undoubtedly much more significant than just a kind word. However, the situation is already spinning so sharply that the risk of a transition from words to deeds is increasing, and contrary to traditional Chinese ceremonies. End of quote. Sometimes they talk. China, indeed, did not order a nuclear war. Moreover, the Kremlin warned against sudden movements in this direction. Dirt the planet is easy, but then how to live with it? So far, Putin has been demonstrating somersaults of a suicidal person, tumbling without insurance under the dome of a fascist circus. The fears of particularly far-sighted experts are confirmed. A bald-headed psychopath can easily throw something nuclear from the territory of Belarus and say, "It's not us, deal with Lukashenko." And then, when the answer flies, to squeal about NATO aggression. In any case, nuclear weapons in Belarus are a gigantic escalation by Putin. The psycho-Führer is clearly preparing to make historic decisions in the event of a defeat in Ukraine. After all, the armed forces of Ukraine are getting stronger every day. The Ukrainian military returned from the exercises on the Challenger 2 tanks. Lieutenant Colonel Stone, who commanded the training, does not hide his satisfaction. "We were all extremely impressed with the level of demonstrated competence and have no doubt that our friends will use the Challenger 2 tanks to the maximum effect in future battles, protecting their homeland." And the Institute for the Study of War cherishes the hope that the Ukrainian counteroffensive will make it easier for Putin to negotiate. According to analysts, the armed forces of Ukraine should inflict such damage on the Russian army, after which it will become clear to Putin and his inner circle that the Russian troops cannot hope to improve the outcome of the war by continuing hostilities. And therein lies a big mistake. Putin is a clinically stubborn psychopath who cannot be moved towards the rational. After all, the invasion itself was an irrational move. To admit this for Putin is tantamount to defeat. Then it turns out that the West and Ukraine are right, and it is necessary to withdraw troops from the territory of Ukraine, abandoning the very idea of gathering Soviet lands. This, from Putin's point of view, his entourage will not understand and will not accept. Therefore, in response to the failures of his own army, Putin is more likely to use the nuclear argument. Not powerful, but charged enough to scare the enemy. And if he does not get scared and answers, so be it. For why do we need a planet if it doesn't have our gateway with our lads and their desperate godfather? Lithuania has already stated that they will seek new sanctions against Russia and Belarus because of their intention to deploy nuclear weapons in Belarus. And the schizoid propagandist Aleksandr is already hallucinating with molten Warsaw and drowned Vilnius.
Well, what about the enemies? Belarus is a nuclear power, a state that has the ability, in the event of an attack on its territory, to respond with tactical nuclear weapons. Warsaw will melt and Vilnius will sink. We will watch a matte sunset and the rise of a plague fungus in a Polish swamp. And so the secret will come true. Do not poke your nose, gentlemen, for we will irradiate. You forced us, and don't complain now. You have been warned.
Become our patrons now and look further in this program. The Ministry of Defense fired Colonel General Muradov, who effectively roasted Putin's soldiers. It was he who disposed of the 155th Marine Brigade of the RF Ministry of Defense. On the eve of Kirevka, near Tula, local residents flew well, convincingly reminding that the boomerang of war always returns. The FSB listened to the conversations of producer Iosif Prigozhin and ex-Senator Akhmetov and gave the order to sort it out. And the producer of The Convicts, Yevgeny Prigozhin, things are even worse. In addition to Shoigu, he formed two more enemies, China and the United States. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that he will suspend judicial reform after 12 weeks of massive protests and strikes. The son of the head of the all-Russian state television and radio broadcasting company Oleg Dobrodeyev, Boris Dobrodeyev, fled Russia to Uzbekistan, away from mobilization. He will create a new IT holding. Stay close to money and food, and away from the patriotic trenches. That's the motto of the golden children of the brown elite. And that is all. See the story about Prigozhin on Daily Motion. And the full version of the program is on the Patreon resource. And thanks to everyone who is becoming our patrons right now. He hugged everyone. Glory to Ukraine.